There is an old hotel located on the outskirts of Willow Creek, a place the locals often whisper about, calling it the Hollow Inn. It's not because it lacks guests, but because there's a room everyone tries to avoid, even those who aren't superstitious. Room 237, regarded as a void, a place where sound stops, warmth disappears, and whenever that door closes, something seems to be watching from within. It all started with a death. On a winter night over 2 years ago, Elliot Granger, a 29-year-old insurance agent, checked into the hotel for an overnight stay. The rain was pouring, the streetlights flickering as though controlled remotely. He requested a quiet room. The receptionist, a young girl with a worried look, was about to suggest a room on the ground floor, but the manager interrupted, saying, "Room 237 is available." Elliot didn't know. No one warned him that it was the only room no one wanted to clean, that every time they tidied it, it felt like someone was breathing right behind them. No one mentioned the large mirror hanging in the room, where even if you turned your back, your reflection would still be staring back at you. No one spoke about the scratching noise from the door at midnight, as if someone was locked outside, desperately begging to come in. Elliot entered the room at 11:03 p.m. The last time he was seen alive was on the hallway security camera, waving goodbye to the receptionist. The last footage before the CCTV lost signal. The next morning, room 237 remained eerily silent. No footsteps, no water running, no curtains being drawn. The housekeeper knocked at 9 a.m., but there was no answer. Around noon, the staff used a spare key to open the door, and screamed so loudly it woke up the entire hotel. Elliot was found dead in a position inexplicable. He was hung upside down from the ceiling, his legs twisted like ropes, eyes bulging, mouth wide open as if screaming. But no sound was heard that night. There was no sign of forced entry. The lock was intact, and strangely, the police couldn't view the hallway camera footage from the night of the murder. All the data from 10:59 p.m. to 3:07 a.m. was missing, the suspected time of Elliot's death. The autopsy revealed the cause of death as injuries from hanging and internal bleeding. But the coroner couldn't explain why the victim's organs appeared to be reversed. The liver on the right side pressing against the throat, the heart fractured but the ribs intact. The police were stumped. The media called it an unimaginable death. The funeral was silent, and no one mentioned the room again. But the fear began to spread within the hotel. A housekeeper requested time off the following day, a.m. But when rewound, there was nothing but a black screen. The hotel manager tried to calm the rumors by closing room 237 for several months, having it repaired and renovated. But every electronic device in the room, from the desk lamp to the outlets, malfunctioned within 3 days of use. An electrician reported hearing the sound of children laughing in his ears whenever he entered the room, even though he was clearly alone. A priest was once invited to purify the room. He stood there for no more than 2 minutes before stepping out, his face as pale as a corpse. He only said one thing before leaving forever. "Something hasn't left, and it's very, very hungry." Elliot's death was filed away as a cold case. But the real coldness is what blankets room 237 every nightfall. No one dares sleep in that room anymore, until the second one appeared, and this time everything got worse. 7 months later, room 237 was quietly reopened. No announcements, no promotions, no questions asked. The hotel silently added it back to the list of available rooms, as if nothing had ever happened. The next guest was a woman named Melanie Ward, 35 years old, an art teacher from Portland. Melanie was on a short vacation, bringing her art supplies and a few books. She requested a private, quiet room where she wouldn't be disturbed. Room 237, of course, was vacant. The new receptionist, a young man who hadn't heard anything about the room's history, casually handed her the key. He only thought it was strange that the key felt freezing cold, as if the metal had been buried in snow, even though it had just been taken from the drawer. Melanie entered room 237 at 4 p.m. She didn't leave the room after that. The next morning, the housekeeper knocked again, but no one answered. This time, a strange smell had seeped into the hallway, like burnt meat mixed with rusty metal. When the door was opened, the hotel was once again plunged into a nightmare. Melanie was found lying on the floor, her body torn apart, as if someone, or something, had peeled her skin from the inside out. There were no signs of struggle, no screams, no blood trail. Just a pool of thick black blood spreading from her mouth, ears, and eyes. The most terrifying part: the walls of the room were covered in blood, with an unexplainable symbol. A circle pierced by dozens of crisscrossing lines like a spider's web. None of the blood belonged to anyone other than the victim. Security camera? Still broken. Exactly from 2:36 to 3:07 a.m. The same time frame as Elliot's incident. Technicians later confirmed. Whispering voice repeated, "Open the door, open the door. I have no eyes. Show me." This time, the police took things more seriously. They sealed off room 237 for 3 weeks. The blood on the walls didn't match any DNA records except the victims. But the odd part was that there were 3 different blood types at the scene. An infrared scanner detected a cold spot deep within the wall behind the bed, where the temperature dropped to 1.7 degrees Celsius, even though the air conditioning wasn't working. They drilled into the area and discovered a false wall. Inside was a narrow space, just enough for a person to stand, and on the wall were blood-stained fingerprints, small, long, with thin, crooked fingers, not resembling a human hand. When one of the investigating officers touched it, he fainted right there. He woke up hours later and couldn't remember anything, except the image of an eye hanging in the air, staring at him. The second death was undeniably a terrifying repetition. 2 victims, the same room, the same time, the same malfunctioning camera system at the exact hour. The hotel owner, Harmon Briggs, still insisted that it was just an unfortunate coincidence. He refused to close room 237 permanently. Instead, he converted it into a storage room, no longer available for guests. But since then, the people in the neighboring rooms began to complain about strange noises late at night. The high-pitched laughter of children, fingernails scratching the walls, and the creepiest, the sound of someone whispering right next to the wall. "Is anyone there? I've been left in the dark for too long." One guest left in the middle of the night, saying he saw the shadow of a woman standing by the door of room 237, faceless, only black holes where her eyes and mouth should be, and when he looked back a second time, it had vanished. This time the hotel began to lose guests in droves. The local newspaper ran a headline, The cannibal room, the mystery of the Hollow Inn Hotel. The comment section was flooded with ghost stories, but for some, it was an invitation. 1 year later, another man, a writer of horror stories, booked room 237, not by coincidence, not by accident, but because he knew the place all too well and wanted to witness it for himself. He was the third person, and also the one to tell the story. I am Gavin Ellis, an independent horror writer, and I rented room 237 because I don't believe in ghosts. It may sound... Receptionist quietly handed me the key without a word. Perhaps he knew who I was, and knew what I wanted. The key to room 237 was freezing cold. I entered the room at 4:44 p.m., a rather ominous coincidence. The room was not large. A double bed, a wooden desk, a standing mirror, a small bathroom, a window overlooking the parking lot. Everything was spotless, almost too clean. I turned on the recorder and opened my notebook. Time to start the investigation journal. Day 1, 6:15 p.m. The atmosphere in the room was unusually quiet. No wind, no traffic, not even the hum of the air conditioner. It felt like I was standing in a box buried deep underground. The first night passed without any unusual events, at least not to the naked eye. But the recording left something strange. At 2:37 a.m., there was a very faint knock on the door, repeated 3 times. Although I didn't remember anyone coming, I replayed the recording at least 10 times. After the third knock, a whispering sound came through the mic. "Open your eyes." The next morning, I checked the door. Still locked. No one in the hallway. But while making coffee, I noticed a smudge in the mirror in the room. A handprint. Inside the mirror. It wasn't a print. It couldn't be wiped off. Day 2, 10:03 p.m. Something's wrong. I started feeling like I was being watched, especially when I turned my back to the mirror. The light flickered every time I neared the bathroom door. I felt like someone was standing on the other side of the wall. Smiling? I decided to set up a mini camera in the room, recording from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. The camera worked fine, but the next morning, when I checked the file, only 2:37 minutes of data were left. Before and after that, it was completely black. It wasn't a disconnect. It wasn't a memory card error. The screen turned solid black, and then there was a faint image of an eye, a large, red, glaring eye, staring directly at the camera, from above, from the ceiling. I started seeing hallucinations, or so I thought. When I looked in the mirror, I saw myself smiling, even though my face was expressionless. When I closed my eyes to sleep, I still saw shadows moving in the room. One time, I opened my eyes in the middle of the night and hear it. It's better not to respond, even if it calls your name. I had never told him my name. I stayed up all night, and at 2:37 a.m., the bathroom door opened by itself, even though I had locked it. From inside, water trickled out, red like thin blood. On the mirror was a message written with fingernails. "I've been watching you for a long time, And this time, you're not going anywhere. I closed the journal at 4:12 a.m. I knew in my heart that what haunted room 237 was not just a ghost. It was a living intelligence, and it was playing with me, just like it had with Elliot and Melanie. But I didn't leave. Not yet. I needed to understand it to the fullest. I needed to go to the basement. Day 4, 1:02 a.m. I'm no longer sure if I'm awake or dreaming. Every time I close my eyes, I no longer see darkness, but another room. A room identical to room 237, but distorted. The walls are bleeding, the mirror doesn't reflect, and in it, I'm not alone. I started to see myself in two places at once. One part of me sat on the bed, holding the notebook, eyes fixed on the closet door. The other part stood behind me, smiling, a smile that didn't come from my lips, but echoed in my skull. I didn't speak it out loud, but I knew. Something is alive in this room. Not a soul, not a ghost, but a thing that eats thoughts, consumes memories, and slowly devours itself. That night, I decided to move the heavy wooden wardrobe, the one I'd felt uneasy about since day one. After nearly 15 minutes of pushing, a part of the wall was revealed, an uneven patch of bricks. I knocked lightly. It was hollow. With a flashlight, I pried the mortar out with a screwdriver, and behind it was a narrow gap, just enough for a person to crawl into. No draft, no scent, just a solid blackness, like staring into the throat of the world. Day 4, 3:03 a.m. I brought along my flashlight, recorder, a pocket knife, and the foolish courage of one who doesn't believe in demons. As I crawled inside, the world outside disappeared instantly. No sound, no light, even the flashlight flickered erratically. I crawled in the darkness as if the hallway was made of black velvet. Sometimes my hand brushed against something wet, like human skin, but it was as cold as iron. The wall led me downwards, deep into the earth, kept here. I took a step back, bumping into a hand, but when I turned around, no one was there. On the floor was a small box made of dry, cracked leather. I opened it. Inside was a human eye, still moist, twitching lightly. I vomited right there. But the sound didn't echo. It was as if this place swallowed the sound itself. I ran, or tried to run, but the exit disappeared. Instead, I found myself in an endless hallway with hundreds of doors, each numbered 237. I tried opening one door. Inside was me, but dead, hanging upside down, intestines spilling onto the floor. I slammed it shut. The second door. I was sitting, drawing on the wall with blood, my eyes empty. The third door. I had no eyes, no mouth, just shaking my head endlessly in the dark. I started to understand. Room 237 is not a room, it's a boundary, a place where reality intersects with the realm of those souls who have been trapped in ultimate fear. Death here does not end. You die, and then you are forced to repeat that death forever. In every possible version, the memories of the dead are recreated as space, and the more victims there are, the more room 237 expands. I kept repeating a sentence in my mind. I have to get out. I have to get out. I have to. I don't know how, but I found myself back in the room. I opened my eyes, and I was lying on the bed in room 237, my clothes covered in blood. In my hand was a new Polaroid photo. In the photo, I was crawling out from the wall, and behind me was something tall with glowing red eyes, its hand almost touching my neck. I won't dare sleep anymore. I'm writing everything down in this notebook. If I disappear, someone will read it. I believe there is something that lives off fear and consciousness, and it has chosen room 237 as its nest. It doesn't want anyone to leave. It's just waiting for the next person to open the door.
Day 5, 8:44 a.m. I am still alive, but I'm not sure if it still means anything. I haven't eaten, haven't slept, haven't left the room. Every time I look in the mirror, I see myself decaying bit by bit. But I still write. If I disappear, this notebook will be the last thing I leave for anyone foolish enough to step in here like I did. I've decided to do something no one has done before. Access the security camera system. I pretended to leave the hotel, but instead sneaked into the technical room behind the reception. It was
Signal. But, unexpectedly, the frame was not fully black, as they claimed. In the faint darkness, the camera captured a blurry movement, like black smoke crawling on the floor. Then, from the smoke, an arm emerged. No skin, no bones, just a shape of presence. Melanie stepped out of the room, her eyes white as if hypnotized. The black smoke crawled up to the ceiling, and from there it descended like a spider, clinging to her head. She collapsed. The screen jerked violently. Finally, when the image stopped, I saw a clear frame. She was dragged back into the room, her hands reaching out in front of her, trying to grab something beyond her reach. Perhaps life itself. I turned off the video and gagged, but I knew, to break the loop, I needed to find the source of this thing. I dug out the hotel blueprints. On an old map from 1960, I saw something odd. The second basement was sealed off since 1973. On the diagram, there was a marked area, morgue, a mortuary. The reason for the sealing? Unclear, but I found a faded line in the records. Entrance, behind room 237. I returned to the room. I smashed the wall behind the wardrobe further, deeper, and discovered an old iron door sealed with plaster. I broke it open. A stone staircase appeared before me, leading down to where the air was thick with the smell of metal and decay. I grabbed my flashlight, knife, and began descending. The basement. No time identified. The deeper I went, the more the sounds were muffled. No footsteps, no heartbeat, only a heavy pulse echoing from somewhere, like the heart of the building. I entered a large room and met them again. Elliot, hanging in mid-air, eyes wide open as if still panicked. Melanie, drawing on the wall with her fallen nails, repeating the mysterious symbol. They both turned to look at me. Their eyes bled. Their mouths were wide open. But there was no sound. In the center of the room was an operating table, surrounded by glass jars containing eyes, hearts, brains, seemingly still moving slightly. And there, it. A form that defies description. A round head with no eyes, a mouth extending to the neck, skin rotting, leaking black blood. It didn't walk, it drifted, like smoke, like a nightmare with a spine. It didn't attack me, it just stood there, and the corner of the mirror in my home. And there's always a gaze, watching me from within. I think I've brought it outside. I left the hotel without looking back. I thought I had escaped. I was wrong. In the following week, I tried to return to normal life. Writing, morning coffee, emails, but nothing was the same. Every night, I still dream of that room. Not nightmares. I dream as if it were real. From the hum of the fluorescent lights, the smell of the bedsheets, to the dry bloodstains beneath the table. I dream that I stand in front of the mirror, but the mirror doesn't reflect me. It reflects Melanie, Elliot, and a fourth person. I didn't recognize the face until he turned around. It was me, but my eyes were black, my mouth was full of blood, and I was smiling. I became obsessed. I started investigating the hotel's past, and then I discovered something that made me stop breathing for 3 minutes. Before it was a hotel, Hollow Inn was a mental asylum, open from 1954 to 1971. It specialized in treating cognitive disorders using electroshock therapy and isolation. The head of the department back then was Dr. Aidan Kroll, a doctor expelled from the Medical Association for conducting unauthorized, multi-layered cognitive experiments. The basement where I once stepped down was the isolation ward, where he locked up patients considered to be spiritual pathogens. Kroll believed extreme fear can open a gateway between human consciousness and the non-material world, the dwelling place of ancient, nameless entities. He wasn't insane. He was right. I realized something spine-chilling. Room 237 was precisely positioned over the old operating table where Kroll conducted his first experiments. In 1971, the hospital shut down. No reason, no reports. It is only known that the entire building was sealed off and converted into a hotel. But they didn't destroy the basement. They just built over it. And so, what was created from blood, fear, and experiments didn't disappear. It merely slept until someone touched the key. Attention. Elliot, Melanie, and me. I tried to send the report, the video, and my notes to the police, media, and publishers. No one responded. A technician friend of mine sent me a final message. "You're digging into something you shouldn't touch. I've deleted." Hallway was empty. Completely dark. No way out. On the desk was my own journal. The last page was written in handwriting that wasn't mine. I am the writer. They need a storyteller. They don't need to escape. They need to be remembered. I understand. I am the third one, without a body. I've been kept, but from the outside, like an extension of room 237. Every story I tell, every article I write, every post I upload, it's all bait to lure someone new inside. Every glance is an invitation. Every click on an image, video, post is a link to the gate. Are you reading this? Good. Then you know. Now you've seen it too. At 2:37 a.m. today, try looking at the mirror very carefully. If you see yourself fading away, just a reflection, but if the face in the mirror smiles before you do that, then I'm sorry. Room 237 is open, and it has chosen you.